Welcome to this short tutorial to help you get started with nettTracker. If you're about to create your first nettTracker company, you'll automatically be directed to the place to connect to your accounting software or to create a standalone company. If you already have companies in place from your nettTracker dashboard, you'll have the option either to create a new company, or from the account menu, you can see the option here to create a new company. You'll then need to select either your preferred software package to connect to, or you can use nettTracker standalone. As you work through step 1 of the setup wizard, check your financial year dates carefully. You cannot change them later. All of the other settings can be edited within your company settings at any time. The users can be added from the organization area. There are a mixture of 16 different depreciation rules already set up as standard. If you need additional rules which are not in place, you can add them throughout the wizard using the create option, a mixture of straight line reducing balance double decline or straight line in a number of months. There are 2 default asset groups. You can choose to change the names of these groups by just amending the text. If you only needed one group, you could delete that group. If you need more than 2 groups, you can add further groups. You can also add and edit these groups at a later time. For full asset automation, you'll need to put a default depreciation rule in against each asset group, and it can also save time when you're adding assets. But if you are adding assets manually, each asset will be assigned its own individual depreciation rule. For every asset group that you have created, you need to map these to your chart of account categories in your accounting software. Steps 1 and 2 of this area is mandatory. Step 1, recording the additions of your new asset purchases and the depreciation that's calculated and posted during the year. When we're looking at the mappings in step 2 for disposals, you can either have completely separate chart of account codes that deal with disposals, or you could use the exact same account categories that you use in step 1 for your additions. If your balance sheet displays accumulated balances separately from the additions, the movements in the year, then you'll need to complete step 3 for your year end. This means that when the end of year process is completed, journals are created that will move the value of additions and the depreciation in year to your accumulated balances. If you don't require this function and you hold all of your additions and your brought forward balances in the one account, and the same with your depreciation, you simply tick the box indicating transactions entered during the year are posted to the accounts that contain the accumulated balances. Year-end journals are not required. If after completing the wizard you realise that you need to change some of your initial settings, your journal references, your automation preferences, then you'll need to go to the settings menu and select company settings to amend them. If you need to change some of the depreciation rules, edit them or add further, then you can go to the asset register menu, and from within there you can choose the depreciation rules at the bottom of this menu. If you need to add further asset groups, then you choose asset groups and mappings, and when you are here you can choose to create your new groups, and when they've been created you can choose to manage your account mappings, which is very important for your journal entries. If you're using nettTracker in a new financial year, you will need to import your assets from a previous financial year. You can go to the Asset Register menu and choose the option to import assets. Download the template, enable editing, Read all of the instructions on the template carefully, the instructions at the top of the template and some of the instructions within the template. When you have read the instructions carefully, then remove rows 18 down to 33 before copying your assets into the template to import them. When you have all of your assets in place, and they can be a mixture of all of the different asset groups, then check that your total costs, in this example being a total cost of 264,000, my total depreciation here in this example 56,000, so the net value of my assets is 208,000, which should agree to the balance on my balance sheet at the end of the last financial year. A common error is trying to import assets using a depreciation method that's not actually been set up and created. So do check that all of your depreciation rules that you have here are actually in place in nettTracker. As I mentioned earlier, you have some defaults, but if you've got a rule for straight line 17 years, for example, that won't be in place yet, so you'll need to make sure that it's set up first before you import. After updating our import template and saving, I need to look for that file now. All of the assets have come across. If there are any errors, they would be highlighted with a red box around them. There are no errors on this import, so I'll choose to complete the import. If this is your first time of using nettTracker and you don't see all of your assets, perhaps just one asset, check your page sizing at the top of the asset register. There are some limits there of up to 100 assets per page, and this is to speed up the time that it takes to load up the page upon the screen. It will only display one group at a time as well for the same reason, so that it just is quicker loading up on your screen. Again, if I click into motor vehicles, we'll see all of the trucks there on the asset register. While the asset register is displayed on my screen, if I just scroll up towards the top a little, we have various headings with regards to the name, the reference location, dates acquired, etc. If you don't wish to display every single one of these columns, then you can remove them from your screen by going to the little settings cog on the far right and removing any columns that you don't wish to see. I'm just heading over to the dashboard now. And now that I've updated my asset register, I can see from the summary in the fixed asset area that my nettTracker book value is 208,000 and the external book value, the value of my balance sheet, is also 208,000. And that's what we want to see, balances that agree. I can also see from this area of the dashboard that I have some transactions that require processing. These are new asset purchases. Now I'm just going to head to the transactions area. I'm displaying one asset purchase there. Now, depending on how I have coded the asset purchase in my accounting software will depend on whether it's going to appear here or not. So earlier on, we looked at mapping our accounts for additions. So I need to make sure that I have mapped my asset group to the correct chart of account category for additions. If not, then I will not see those new purchases. If I have just made an entry in my accounting software and I don't see it immediately, then like I'm about to do here, I can choose to refresh my external data. And there is another asset purchase which has come through. Depending on the settings that I have in place, we can automate this function. nettTracker will automatically refresh the data, and twice a month it will automatically add new asset purchases to the asset register. If I'm not using that feature, then I can choose to add them very quickly from here. I can check all of the default information that appears. If I'm happy with the information, I can simply click OK to add to the asset register. My asset register has been updated. I'm just going to head to the dashboard to see the effect of the summary. Now at this particular time, my asset register is displaying 255,500 with a balance sheet value of 208,000. Why do I see a difference? This is due to the reporting period that we have in nettTracker at the moment. The next reporting period ends on the 31st of January 2021, and that is the date that it's looking at the balance sheet. The two asset purchases were added, and they were purchased in March and May of 2021. So if I update my depreciation and bring it to the end of May, we will see our values should come back into line. So to process the depreciation, I'm going to use the option here to request company processing, and we use that button if we're updating our prepayments and accruals as well. So I'm going to run the depreciation all the way through to the end of May and choose process. If you've just done that, as I have, you may need to just do a little reload. So I'm just going to reload the asset register values. And now that I can see my balance sheet and my asset register are back in line as they should be. I'm just going to head back now into the asset register itself and look at all of my assets. Against each asset, we have the ability to edit using the tools feature. So if I look at the tools, we can edit the asset, which really we can't change too much in there. Usually it's just going to be the asset details. We can actually change the depreciation rule if we wish to change that halfway through. We've got options to dispose of the asset. If it was put on accidentally, we can delete the asset. And if any depreciation has been posted, we can also select an option to reverse that depreciation too. There are also options for kits where you might want to split an asset into several parts. So that's when we'd use to create a kit from an asset. Or you can create a kit and you might have several asset purchases that you wish to combine and put them into one single kit. At the top of your asset register is the ability to download into Excel. This could be useful if you need to save it as part of your working papers. I'm just going to process the depreciation up to the end of the financial year. And again, don't forget this can be fully automated. When we reach the end of a financial year, we'll need to run the end of year process. So I can see at the top of my dashboard, I've got the option to start the end of year. You'll also receive an email notification of this fact. So I'm going to start the end of year process. It's advising me now that I should review my data. So to review my data basically means checking my asset register, but I can also check my depreciation forecast. I know we've not looked at that yet, but the depreciation forecast displays all of the depreciation for the entire year. Now what I can also do in the depreciation forecast is at the end of the financial year, I can make adjustments. So if too much or too little depreciation has been accounted for, I can make some adjustments up or down. I don't need to make any adjustments in this example. I'm going to head back to the dashboard and complete the end of year. I don't need to configure mappings. So earlier I mentioned about using different journals for the end of year processing to update my accumulated balances. I don't need to do that here, so I'm just going to complete the end of year process. So I'm in a brand new financial year now that starts January 2022. If I do just head into my asset register, I can now see a little calendar box. I can look back at previous asset registers at any time. Well, I hope you found this short tutorial useful. Now don't forget, within nettTracker there is the help menu, and if we look at the help and support options, there is the knowledge base, which contains a lot of useful information. For example, how is the depreciation calculated? So I could run a little question, how is reducing balance depreciation calculated in nettTracker? So if you have a question, it is likely to have been asked before, so there's lots of useful information in there. If you do need any further help, or perhaps you feel something isn't working as you expect it, then please do create a support ticket and ensure that you ask what you need help with, the information of your company, and provide us with as much information about the problem you're experiencing so that we can help you as quickly as possible. This just leaves me to say thank you for watching, and we hope you get the most out of using nettTracker.